Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. And today we're going to start a new series of videos. As we all know, I abhor a poorly written female character. Wishy-washy, inability to know herself, her, if she's, weak-willed, and just, I cannot stand that type of character. They drive me insane, and you all know this. So, instead, I'm going to start a series that puts the spotlight on well-written, well-rounded. Why are there hawks circling my house? My chickens are out. Hang on, I'm going to go check the chickens. I'll be right back. Okay, all of the chickens are accounted for. 5 happy girls, laying outside, weather's warming up. They're good. Back to what I was saying. So, I'm going to, do a series highlighting well-written, strong female characters. And the intent is if you are struggling to find ones that are well-written, or you're frustrated by, hello Felicity, wishy-washy female characters, then hopefully you will find this helpful. I'm going to highlight books I have read, books that are very high on my list to read, because I know that the female character will be very well written. Without qualm, I know that. So, in this first episode, I have 6 authors, 5 I've read, 5 books I have completed, 1 book I have not read yet, but I have read the author. And it is a mix of secular, Christian fiction, Catholic secular, it runs the gamut. Like my general reading does, it runs the gamut. So let's do the book I have not read yet. I have read this author. And that is The Memoirs of Cleopatra by Margaret George. This is on my my personal reading challenge. I have started this. I have not completed it. I'm just going to start over. It was published in 1897, and I made it a whopping 20 pages in. So restarting won't be a problem. I love Margaret George's writing, and no one in their right mind can call Cleopatra a weak-willed woman. So, as you can tell, it's a tome. I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. And her writing is beautiful. Her research is stellar. I cannot wait. So I will read you the back. Best-selling novelist Margaret George brings to life the glittering kingdom of Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, in this lush, sweeping, and richly detailed saga. Told in Cleopatra's own voice, this is a mesmerizing tale of ambition, passion, and betrayal, which begins when the 20-year-old queen seeks out the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar, and does not end until, having survived the assassination of Caesar and the defeat of the second man she loves, Mark Antony, she plots her own death rather than be paraded in triumph through the streets of Rome. Most of all, in its richness and authenticity, it is an irresistible story that reveals why Margaret George's work has been widely acclaimed as the best kind of historical novel, one the reader cannot wait to get lost in. And I will tell you, without question, that is a very very accurate description of her writing. Once you get immersed in the story, you will struggle mightily to put it down. And I love her writing. I do. I love her writing. I'm trying to pick off the tag on the back. Did a poor job of it. Okay. So, now for the 5 I have read. And first up would be A Shameful Murder by Cora Harrison. Our protagonist is a reverend mother in a convent. And she solves murders in County Cork. And I absolutely love this story. It's an entire series. It is less than 250 pages in this version. And she is just a gem of a character. She runs a school for girls. She has contacts out in society. She deals with all levels of social structure. She is just a pillar of strength for the younger nuns under her care, for the students at her school. She is an example. And yet, you would think that such a character, borderlines being a Mary Sue, she's perfect at everything. She's not a Mary Sue type of character. She has her own flaws, and she has her own foibles in life. And she understands that she is not perfect. And yet, she perseveres. And I absolutely just fell in love, A, with Harrison's writing, but B, with Reverend Mother Aquinas. And it is a cozy murder mystery. It is fantastic. It is joyful. It is excellent historical fiction in a compact format, and I cannot recommend it enough. Okay, I'm going to save this one for last. Next up would be Counterfeit Love by Crystal Cadell. This is the first book in the Hidden Hearts of the Gilded Age series. It is, I believe, her debut novel. This is a Christian romantic suspense, and I loved this book. This one is set in Cincinnati in 1883. Our heroine is Teresa, and she lives with her grandfather, who is trying to marry her off to a man she doesn't love, and a man who claims he loves her, but there's all kinds of red flags, and she's finding it difficult to find the will to say, no, I need to live for myself. But at the same time, she's willing to sacrifice herself and marry this man to help her grandfather out of debt and to save the family home. She doesn't understand the reason her grandfather is so deep in debt. She just knows that without this marriage, they're going to lose everything. And then she runs into her first love, and what then ensues is this delightful, twisty, suspenseful, it's romance, but at its heart, it's a mystery. And she finds her feet, and she says, no, I am not going to marry you. I am going to solve my grandfather's debt issue by myself in another way. And I will face those consequences because I cannot marry a man I don't love. And I don't believe that's what God wants me to do. And this was just a delightful, twisty, interesting romantic suspense. Even more so because it is set someplace where you don't find historical romance set very often, in Cincinnati. So I highly recommend this book. I've read the first 2 books in the series. They're both set someplace else. It is terrific, and I still need to read book 3, but I absolutely loved this series. Okay, next up, Recorder by Kathy McCrum. This is the first book in the Children of the Consortium series. I realize this is not a surprise to any of you. We all know I love this Christian sci-fi. Recorder is a female. And in this society, unwanted children are given to the consortium to be raised. And I can't really say much more than that without spoiling the details. And they are led to have no emotions. They are technologically altered to suppress all emotions. And Recorder grew up in that series. And she is what is known as a recorder, who is an individual that records events in society objectively and does not, under any circumstances, interfere with what is going on in the situation she is recording, or he is recording. So Recorder is sent on a mission. It's her very first one, to rescue a space research facility that has gone offline on a planet, and something goes drastically wrong, and her implants are removed, and suddenly she has emotions again. And you go on this journey with her as she rediscovers her humanity and emotions and what it means to care for others, and her selflessness in light of the danger she is in is inspiring. Even if you are very leery about reading a sci-fi book, this is not hard sci-fi. This is not space opera sci-fi. This is character-driven sci-fi. And if you can, deal with the occasional, mention of a spaceship or, spacesuits or whatever, it's just a character-driven book. And Recorder drives this story, and she becomes what she was always meant to be. And she goes on this journey of self-discovery that will make you cry and will restore your faith in humanity. And like I always tell anybody, when you pick up Recorder, you need to understand that you need books 2 and 3, since they are all published now. You need the entire trilogy at your fingertips, because you will need to know. You will just need to know. So, yeah. She is definitely one of the strongest female characters in the pantheon of Christian fiction. She stands out. She will worm your way into your heart, and she will not let go. Okay. Next up is a radical departure from Recorder. That is The Women by Christian Hannah. I read this last year. It was published in 2024. And this is... It is technically historical fiction. Although the events of this book occurred in my lifetime, so... Yeah, I'm a classic. This takes place during and after the Vietnam War. And our heroine, what is her name? Frankie is an army nurse. She joins up after her older brother is killed in action. And she goes to Vietnam. And she's there for, a full tour of duty. And she comes home and she clearly has PTSD. And if you know anything about this period of American history, you know that returning vets were not well treated. I'm going to put that mildly, not well treated. And this is no exception. She goes through things. She, gets addicted to drugs and alcohol. She makes poor life decisions because she's dealing with trauma. And the friends she made in Vietnam, have their own struggles. They try to help her. And she makes some really bad choices. That being said, she makes bad choices and she goes through stuff. But if she doesn't make those choices, she cannot get to the point where her life gets back on track. She has to go through the struggle of that valley of her life, as deep and dark and as hopeless as it was at times for her, to climb back out. And this was just a beautiful book. And I have, my copy is annotated. I have notes on pages. And I've heard some criticism about this book coming from various communities about the language in the book and some of the scenes in the book. And my response is quite simple. If you put yourself in Frankie's situation, so if you put yourself in Frankie's situation and can honestly tell yourself that you would not swear, you would not be affected by the horrors you witnessed, you would not make similar decisions about actions given the environment in which you found yourself, then you are akin to sainthood. Because honestly, this is a book about a very strong woman who goes through a very difficult event and then comes home as a war veteran and is told, oh, women didn't serve in Vietnam, and this is by the VA. And she struggles and she struggles and she struggles, and she still, with the help of her girlfriends and the help of herself, pulls herself out of it. This book had me sobbing. And I didn't mind the language in this book, and I didn't mind the scenes in this book because they were appropriate for the subject matter of this book. And it is a fantastic, fantastic read. And it made me want to read her back catalog. That's how good of a read it was. So, okay. Now for the last book. That would be The Queen's Governess by Karen Harper. This is historical fiction. It is based on the real life governess of Queen Elizabeth I, and her name was Kate Ashley. And this was my first ever Karen Harper book. And again, it made me want to read her entire back catalog, which I am slowly doing. I will read you the inside flap. The extraordinary tale of Elizabeth I's closest ally and most trusted confidant. A woman whose story has never been told, until now. Catherine Ashley, the daughter of a poor country squire, comes to the royal court as a spy for Henry VIII's man, Thomas Cromwell. She befriends Anne Boleyn and, as a dying favor to the doomed queen, agrees to become governess to the young Princess Elizabeth. Together they suffer bitter exile, assassination attempts, and imprisonment, barely escaping with their lives. But when Elizabeth is crowned, Kate continues to serve her, faithfully guarding all the queen's secrets, even the ones that could bring down her monarchy. Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth once said, gave me life. But Kate Ashley gave me love. If you struggle with historical fiction, if you find it boring, if you find their lives remote or so far in the past that there's nothing relevant to you, pick up this book. It will change your mind. It is not long. The entire thing is less than 350 pages. And Kate Ashley's life was amazing is the wrong word. The fact that she came from nothing and ended up the governess of the future queen is in and itself amazing. But the fact that she did it in a Tudor court that had politics and intrigue and backstabbing and, you know, just every Machiavellian thing you can think of, and survived all of that while still, you know, serving Elizabeth, finding love herself, leaving a written record of her own life, and this was life-changing historical fiction for me. And I say that as a lifelong lover of historical fiction. I've read it my entire life. I think my very first one, not counting like Anne of Green Gables or anything, was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I now have a copy of on my shelf. And still, this book took me out. It is amazing and just covers so much of Elizabeth's life from a unique perspective. And you don't often get the perspective of, in essence, a servant when it comes to royalty. It's always from the perspective of the royal person or the nobility. And instead, in this one, it is clearly despite being elevated by Elizabeth and, surviving and being loved and friends and all of that stuff, she starts from the most humble of beginnings. She is clearly a servant. She was a spy of Henry VIII. She knew Anne Boleyn. And yet it was just her life. It's historical, it's history for us, but it was just her life. And I know, I say this all the time, my sarcastic mouth would have gotten me killed in Tudor England, lickety split, because, I am apt to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and my face tends to give away how I feel about stuff really easily. So I wouldn't have survived. So the fact that she did, and she maintained that relationship with Elizabeth for so long, through her entire life, was, amazing in and of itself. The read is fantastic. If you want a very strong historical fiction woman that was real and not, imaginary, then it's easy to recommend Karen Harper any book, but in particular, The Queen's Governess. Okay, so that is the first installment of Strong Women in Fiction. And there will be other installments forthcoming. I plan to, sprinkle them out as time goes on. And I have so many authors to talk about. It's not going to be difficult. So, okay. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found something new to read. An author you haven't heard of. If not, there are more coming. And leave a comment down below. Like and subscribe. And I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.